Nalidaloka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalidaloka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gurnanavasya Bande Gora Shri Charanaravrindam Praptasya Kalyana Gurnanavasya Bande Gora Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhu ki Gita Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shringara Tanma Niramajanado Shri Juktasya Bhaktamsya Neyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Swatana Triptan Hari Bhakta Shangan Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Swatana Triptan Kridvaiva Tripte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shri Radhikama Kavayara Para Madhura Leela Gunarupa Namna Shri Radhikama Madhura Leela Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Nikunjayo no ratikeri siddhai Jayali veri jokti apekshaneya Nikunjayo no ratikeri siddhai Jayali veri jokti Tatrati dakhya ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda. Sakchadharitena Shamasta Shashre Uktastatha Bhavyateva Sadhavi Sakchadharitena Shashre Kintu Praborja Priya Ebatasya Vande Gorashi Charanaravinda. Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Dayam Stuvam Tasya Yasasti Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanaravinda. Vande Gurashi Charanaravinda. Vande Gurashi Charanaravinda. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Itina Mine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nivishesha Shunavadi Pachatari Shatarine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nivishesha Shunavadi Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda. Gadadhara Shivasari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Namamishwaram Sachidanandarupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Brajamanam Yashoda Biolukala Davamanam Paramishamatyanta Todrita Gopya Rudanta Muhurneta Yugmamirjantam Karamboja Yugmena Satankanetam Muhushwasakam Pachi Ekankakanta Sita Geva Damodayam Bhakti Vadam.
Yes, you practice.
Iti Dikshvalila Bir Ananda Kunde Swagoshani Majanta Makyapayantam Tadiye Shitagneshu Bhaktir Jitatvam Puna Premata Samshata Vritti Vande Varam Deva Moksham Na Moksha Vadim Va Nachanam Vineham Vare Shadapiha. Idam teva purnata gopala balam sadame manasya virasam kimanya. Idam te mukambo jamadyanta nile Vitam kuntalai sigara yashagobya. Muhoshamitam bimbaraktararame Manasya virasamalam lakshalave. Namo Deva Damodarananta Vishnu Prasida Prabho Juka Jalati Magna. Kripadrisi Vishyati Dinam Bhatanu Grihani Shamama Jane Yashinishya. Kuveran Vajobada Murtavayadva Mayamosita Bhakti Vajagujocha. Data Prema Bhaktim Swakami Prayata Namokshiga Omesi Namodareha. Namaste Sudamne Spuradipti Damne Vadiyo Daraya Talve Swasadamne. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe. Jaya Radha Nila Madhva Radha Nila Madhva Radhe. Jaya Radha Nila Madhva Radha Nila Madhva Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Goranita Jaya Goranita Goranita Jaya Goranita. Nitya Gora Haribo 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 Nitya Gora Haribo. Nitya Gora Haribo 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 Nitya Gora Haribo.
Paramsa Prabhajakacha Stutara Sarashishimat Iskon Pratishta Bibiti Samstapakacha Vaishnava Siramani Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhakti Datta Patita Pavana His Divine Grace Abhacharvina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patiti Uddhar Prema Purushottama Shri Satchidananda Shman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavarana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Idam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai Jugo Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihapnidanga Twins Nantur Bhuk Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Radha Kund Samakund Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabam Vrindavan Mathurudam Ki Jai Delosh Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai Kartik Maas Sarmangal Ki Jai Shashodaman Damodari Ji Ki Jai Mayapur Madhuvika Chakradam Ki Jai Paramakurun Shri Gurnitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottam Kitra Jagannath Pridam Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smas Bhadradev Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanishingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Ganga Maya Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Turus Maharani Vrindi Deva Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shrimati Radharani Ki Jai Shri Patuali Vrata Ki Jai Gaurari Pramanande all glory to the Assembly bodies all glory to the Assembly bodies all glory to the Assembly bodies all glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasingaya Prahlada Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha Shilatankana Kalaye ito narasimha parato narasimha yato yato yami tato narasimha bahir narasimha hridaye narasimha narasimha madim sharanam prapate tava kara kamala varena kam adbhuta shringam dalita hiranyakashipu tanu bringa Keshavadhrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare
Abakara Kamala Varindaka Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Panabhinga Keshavadita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare
Jaya Narasingha Dev Jaya Narasingha Dev Jaya Narasingha Dev Jaya Narasingha Dev
Jaya Nisingare 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 Jaya Nisingare
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya
Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev
Jai Jai Gurudev 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 Jai Jai Gurudev
भक्त विघ्न विनाशक नरसिंह देव भगवान की जय भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की जय
जय।
शील प्रभुपाद की जय
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Satavata Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Shatavatai Namo Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi Shatavatai Namo Namaha Ishmati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Maybe yesterday you're going to sing Tulsi. You know sing Tulsi?
Sing, bro, sing. When the opportunity comes, grab.
Okay, fine. You said you're going to sing today. Yes. Okay. Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi 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 Namo Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Ehi Abhilashi Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Ehi Abhilashi Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Ehi Abhilashi Radha Krishna Seva ये तुम्हारा शरण लोय तारा वंश पूर्ण होय ये तुम्हारा शरण कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी मोराये अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियो नायने हेरी बो सदा युगल रूपरासी ए निवेदन दारो सकीरनुगत गुरु ए निवेदन दारो सकीरनुगत गुरु सेवा अधिकार दिए कोरो निज दासी दीना कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा होय दीना कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा होय श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पादे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्याधिकानि
ब्रह्महत्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिणपादे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिणपादे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिणपादे पदे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Jai Tulsi Maharani, Jai Tulsi Maharani, Jai Tulsi Maharani, Jai Tulsi Maharani. Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol.
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Shattavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradidevi Shattavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi Shattavatai Namo Namaha. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shishi Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of carry damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise, may I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Brinda Devi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikhastakam ki jai. Chaito Darpanama Janam Bhavamada Vagni Nivapanam Shreyakari Vichandika Vitaranam Vidya Badhu Jivanam Ananda Buddhivardhanam Patipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakaya Udha Yasava Shakti Statra Pita Yamita Shmane Nakala Ita Shishitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamaki Durhaivam Vidishamya Jani Nanuraga Vinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Parishana Amani Namana Dena Kirtanya Sada Hari Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitamba Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmaneshwari Bhavata Bhavihari Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Sitaduli Sagrisham Chintaya Nayanam Galara Shrudharaya Badanam Gadagadharudaya Gira Pulakairi Chitamba Pukada Tavanam Grahane Bhavisati Jugaitam Nimishena Chakrisa Prabhusaitam Shunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahe Name Asli Shabapa Daratam Pinashtumam Adashanar Mahatam Karotuva Jatha Tathava Vidadhaturam Pato Matprana Tastu Saivana Paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gaur Tuishya Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutarishma Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nibrishesha Sunnavadi Patsatyadi Satarine. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested with transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotion and service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the yellow of the street. Oh my Lord, when will my eyes will decrease with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Or will my voice choke up and will the hairs of my body stand on end in the recitation of your name? Oh Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he should remain so. Even if he's handled me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotee who dedicated life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, our Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now, let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned soul. Jai Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Ananta Kochi Vaishnavrindi Ki Jai. Shri Guru Vandan. Mirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakchurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jyotaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam Satvitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamvitam Cha Nama Om Vishnu Padayo Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devem Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunyavadi Pachatyari Shatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padayo Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamine Shri Varshavana Videvi Deitaya Kripabdvaye Krishna Sambhanda Vigyana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhurjo Jala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravane Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Pusidanta Dvantaharine Namagora Kishoraya Sakya Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambhara Sambodhi Paramujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchitananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Ruparunarayate Gora Vibhava Bhumeswami Desa Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Shri Jagannathayate Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaeva Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavaranayo Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namine Krishna Tattvamakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Suratupangur Mama Manda Mater Gati Matsarva Swapadambo Jod Radha Madana Mono Divya Vindaranya Kalpadumata Shmaranagara Shingasanastu Shmarada Shla Govinda Devo Dristali Bhisevimana Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venus Vane Gopi Gopinata Shriyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samiti Ki Jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Sattva Sukalpa Vriksha Laksha Vitesha Surabhi Abhipali Antam Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sambrahma Sevimanam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kanantam Aravinda Dalaya Daksham Darhabitam Samaistam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Kotika Maniya Vishesha Sovam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasat Vanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shaman Jibangalalita Nita Prakasam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakilan Trivritti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmayas Adujvala Vigrasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaita Machutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Kvantastakoti Satavatsara Samprakamyo Vayoratapi Manasomari Pungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasim Yavichinti Tatve Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Jayatam Jagadanda Kotim Yas Chakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayadanta Adanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Deo Manajastata Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanyana Busa Suttarya Meva Nigaman Pratitastuvanti Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Patibhavita Abhistabirya Evani Jarupa Daya Kalavi Goloka Evani Vasata Kilatma Bhutto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Yadesu Vilokayanta Yam Shama Sundarama Chintya Gunaswarupam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Meditistan Avatar Makarobu Vinesa Kinta Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumanyo Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Pavato Jagadanda Koti Kriswa Sesa Vasadadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahmanis Kalamanantam Sesa Bhutam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Taigunin Visaya Veda Vitaya Manam Satva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Satvam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasuya Praninam Patifalam Smartama Bhekya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jayaya Jasram Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Telechilasya Devi Mahesa Adidama Sate 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 Prabhava Nichaya Vitastiyena Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shrististati Pralaya Sadhava Saktireka Jayevi Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasa Chitesa Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yatada Divikara Visesi Yoga Sanjayatena Tatapritakastiyeta Yasambutama Pitata Samapaitikaya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Deparchadevi Santanama Bipetya Dipayate Vivete Samana Dharma Yastadri Gevihicha Vishnutaya Vibhati Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajisma Yoga Nidramananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa Adhara Saktam Babalambya Param Samurtim Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yashaikani Swasita Kalam Atabalambya Jivanti Loma Vilija Jagadanda Nata Vishnu Mahansa Yasikalabi Sesa Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakaleshni Jason Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatiyat Apitad Vatatra Brahmaya Yasa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Kabata Palavigam Vinidaya Kumbad Vande Pranamasamaya Sekanadi Raja Vignan
Tan Vihanta Malamasa Jagatrayasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamam Bumaruti Sasha Galas the Tatmamana City Jagatrayani Asmad Bhavanti Vivamanti Visantiam Cha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami As Chaksurisa Savitasha Kilagrano Rajas Master Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasyaga Brahmati Sambrita Kalachakro Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Dharmo Papa Nichaya Sutesta Pamse Brahmadi Kita Patagaba Desa Jiva Haya Data Mati Ripapa Kitaba Baba Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yastvindra Gopa Matavenda Mahusva Karma Pandanu Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nidahati Kinchita Bhakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Am Kroda Kama Saja Pranayadi Bhite Vatsaya Mohaguru Govar Sevya Bhava Sanchinti Tasha Sadrisim Tanamapurite Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Shia Kanta Kanta Paramapurusha Kapatara Vajrama Bhumish Chintamani Kanamita Mamajam Kataganam Natyam Gamanama Pivam Sipriya Saki Chiranandam Jyoti Paramapita Dasvadyamapicha Sayatra Siradi Bihi Savadi Surabi Byastu Sumahan Nimesar Dakyuva Vajiti Nahya Tripi Samayas Bhaji Svitati Pam Tamaha Ikalo Gulukamitiam Vidantaste Santakshiti Vracharakati Paya Shri Guru Vastika Piraski Jay, the spiritual master receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted one by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. So, for my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual masters, the ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because he's relishing mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands and then he feels quivering his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves are. For my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual masters. Spiritual masters are always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engaged his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. Or for my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. Spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is leech, drunk, and such. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. However, for my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika, Madhava, and the qualities, names, and forms of the spiritual master, aspires to relish these at every moment. However, for my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he's expert at assisting gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. For my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. Spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most competent to serve to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all the real scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, I cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja ki jai, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, and verse number 8. Esa hi asisa satvanam atman sa paramatmana adyo vataro yatraso bhutagramo vibhavyate. Esa, this, he, certainly, asesa, unlimited, Satvanam, living entities, Atma, self, Amsa, part, Parama Atmana, of the Supersoul, Adya, the first, Avatara, incarnation, Yatra, whereupon, Aso, all those, Bhutagrama, the aggregate creations, Vibhavyate, flourish. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The gigantic, universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation and plenary portion of the Supersoul. He is the self of an unlimited number of living entities, and in him rests the aggregate creation, which thus flourishes. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Lord expands himself in two ways, by personal plenary expansions and separated minute expansions. The personal plenary expansions are Vishnu Tattvas, and the separated expansions are living entities. Since the living entities are very small, they are sometimes described as the marginal energy of the Lord. But the mystic yogis consider the living entities and the supersoul, Paramatma, to be one and the same. It is, however, a minor point of controversy. After all, everything created rests on the gigantic Virat, or universal form of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation and the plenary portion of the Supersoul. He is the self of an unlimited number of living entities, and in him rests the aggregate creation, which thus flourishes. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so this is talking about the Virat Rupa, which is a temporary form of Krishna, although, and it's material, but still it's an expansion of Krishna, just like the deities in the temple are a material form also, but they're considered expansion of the Lord, because the Lord is, as it says, is separated energies. Bhumir apo nalo vayu kammano buddhi evacha ahankara ityame bina bhaktirastata. So these are his 8 separated energies that constitute the material creation, and they're further divided into 24 material elements. So in that sense, everything is made of the Lord's energy, so everything is non-different than the Lord, but yet the Lord is still independent of everything. So this is, the philosophy is of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, which is explained in the 4th verse of the 9th chapter, which says, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyaktamurtina matstani sarvabhutani nachaham tesu anvastita. And the translation of that verse is, by me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So he is and he isn't. Say, he is non-different than the material elements. At the same time, he's independent and aloof from the material elements. So, and then it says, the next verse, Nachamatstani Bhutani Pasyame Yugam Aishwaram Bhuta Rin Nachabhuta Stos Mamatma Bhuta Bhavana. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence, although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation. So these 2 verses are extremely essential to understand what Lord Chaitanya is talking about, Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. The absolute truth is the supreme absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, but he is and he isn't. He is non-different than his separated energies, and at the same time, he is different. So if we read the purport, it says, the Lord says that everything is resting on him, Matstani Sarvabhutani. This should not be misunderstood. The Lord is not directly concerned with the maintenance and sustenance of this material manifestation. Sometimes we see a picture of Atlas holding the globe on his shoulders. He seems to be very tired, holding this great earthly planet. Such an image should not be entertained in connection with Krishna's upholding this created universe. He says that although everything is resting on him, he is aloof. the planetary systems are floating in space, and this space is the energy of the Supreme Lord. But he is different from space. He is differently situated. Therefore, the Lord says, although they are situated on my inconceivable energy as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I am aloof from them. This is the inconceivable opulence of the Lord. So he simultaneously and inconceivably one and different. Simultaneously and inconceivably one and different. So, yes, it is inconceivable how he is expanded into the material world, and there are many expansions. There's expansions of himself in the spiritual world, beginning from first expansion, Balaram, to the first Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Sankarsan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, and then from the first Chaturvyuha, there's the expansion of Narayana, and from Narayana, there's the expansion of the second Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, and so forth, and then from the second Chaturvyuha, there's the expansion of the Vishnu murtis, or Vishnu expansions, which are Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. And from Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, there's expansion of different types of avatars. Some of them are animals, some of them are half animal, half human, some of them are seem to be human. So, and then there's the expansion of the living entities. This is all coming from Krishna originally. And there's billions and billions and trillions of expansions of the Lord. And besides that, there's the entire material energy, which is expanded from the Lord. And there's there's further expansion into all the different elements that make up the different bodies. And so it's bewildering, and it's very difficult for most people to understand this, because it's way beyond anything a human being can do. But yet, people are dumb enough to accept individual jivas as God himself. They declare themselves as God, but they don't have the power of God. Right? None of them do. So we see why it's so difficult for materialistic people to understand, because their space-time module is so restricted that it cannot in any way imagine that there's a living being with all this power and all this expansion. So, but devotees can understand why, because they have given up false concepts that are proliferated every day. Every day there's newer and newer false concepts and theories that confuse people. And as long as we're confused by these false concepts, we reject the existence of God, especially a God that has such powers, out of envy. Okay, so it continues. It says, in the Nirukti Vedic dictionary, it is said, Yujate nena durgatesu karyesu. The Supreme Lord is performing inconceivably wonderful pastimes, displaying his energy. His person is full of different potent energies, and his determination is itself actual fact. In this way, the personality of Godhead is to be understood. Now there's an amazing statement here where it says, his determination is itself actual fact. What does that mean exactly? That means that whatever he thinks, whatever he wants, it happens. He doesn't have to do anything for it to happen. It's just by thinking of it and becoming determined that it should happen, it happens automatically. So no one has power like that. It's inconceivable that someone could have such power, but the Lord does have it. We may think of doing something, but there are so many impediments, and sometimes it is not possible to do as we like. But when Krishna wants to do something, simply by his willing, everything is performed so perfectly that one cannot imagine how it is being done. Well, that's what's going on. The scientists see the universe functioning in a perfect way, and they can't imagine that one person is controlling the whole thing and is the source of it. Therefore, they say, well, it happened by accident. That's their explanation. It happened by accident, yeah. It's a fortuitous conjunction of many different things happening at one time, and it happened so many billion years ago, and that's it. That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's not it. There's a lot more to it, but they can't figure it out, so they just say, well, it happened by accident. This is nonsense. This is not science. Where's the proof that it happened by accident? They're not proving it. They can't do any experiment showing how matter is produced by some accidental event. And sometimes they explain it. They say, well, originally there was a soup somewhere in the North Pole, a nutrient soup with amino acids, which are precursors of living entities. And some lightning struck it, boom, and all of a sudden, all those amino acids solidified into a one-celled amoeba. This is nonsense. There's no proof of it. There's no experiment showing that such a thing can happen. And they've tried it. They have zapped with electricity a amino acid soup, and nothing happened. Right? Still the amino acids were there. In fact, they might have killed them by, not killed them because they're not living entities, but they might have destroyed them with their electric shock. Who knows? Who knows? They're just saying things. You're not going to do the experiment yourself. You don't know what happened there. See, so that's their trick. They say they do something that you're never going to verify, so you just accept it. Right. Okay, so then it says, he does not touch the material manifestation. Simply by his supreme will, everything is created, everything is sustained, everything is maintained, and everything is annihilated. There's no difference between his mind and himself, as there is a difference between ourselves and our present material mind, because he is absolute spirit. Simultaneously, the Lord is present in everything. Yet, the common man cannot understand how he is also present personally. He is different from this material manifestation, and yet he is resting on it. This is explained here as Yogam Aishwaram, the mystic power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What a purport. And the main point saying here is that Krishna is always situated within his spiritual energy. Even in the material world, he's still situated in spiritual energy. He never actually touches the material energy, even though he may be walking and talking and acting within the material energy, but he is always transcendental to it. Now, why do we have a difficulty understanding this? Because we're confused by the duality between the soul and the body. Now, some way people try and accommodate that confusion by saying there's no soul, there's just matter. And therefore, if Krishna comes in the material world, he also has a material body. See, that's the way they resolve this dichotomy between the soul and the body. But that's a false narrative. It's not true. Our soul is completely different than the body. It has nothing to do with the body. It's not chemically blended with the body. Sometimes we say the soul and the body are one, but that doesn't mean that they are chemically united. It's not as if the soul is some particle of the body. The soul is completely independent of the body, and the body simply covers it. Just like, let's say you're in the toilet and you have a gold ring, but it's a little bit bigger than pinky finger or one of your fingers, and let's say a mosquito bites you on your hand, and you go like this, and your gold ring slips off your finger and falls into the toilet where there's plenty of stool. So right now, your gold ring is covered by the stool and the water, and you don't see it, but you know it's there. Now, has it connected with the stool? No. Therefore, you stick your hand in the stool, and you pick out the gold ring, and you wash your hand and the gold ring, and there it is. Okay? So that's the soul also. The soul is not chemically connected to the body made of material elements. It is completely independent. And once you clean away that covering, and temporary artificial covering of the material elements, there's the soul, completely intact. It was never connected to the matter. So we see it's hard to understand these things. Why? Because as long as one is under the spell of false knowledge and false theories and false concepts, they can't understand. It's impossible for them to understand, right? I mean, you can try and preach to a scientist, and he'll always, not all of them, some of them are intelligent, really intelligent, but most of them are not. They're dumber than the dumbest person. Then let's say they're dumber than the hobo is living in a tent city somewhere, right? They're dumber than them. Even the hobo has a little bit of common sense, but the scientists, they don't have common sense. All they have is this overinflated ego that refuses, that insulates them from any ability to understand transcendental knowledge. That's who they are. See? So they're not the smartest people in the world, they're the dumbest people in the world, dumber than the hobos. You know what a hobo is? In the 1930s, they used that word to talk about homeless people, right? That don't have a home, they're living out in the street, right? So, here it says, simultaneously the Lord is present in everything, yet the common man cannot understand how he is also present personally. He is different from this material manifestation, and yet everything is resting on him. This is explained here as Yogam Aishwaryam, the mystic power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now the next verse also is very interesting. Yata kasa stito nityam vayu sarvatmako mahan tata sarvani bhutani matstani upalaraya. Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. And the purport Prabhupada says, for the ordinary man, it is almost inconceivable how the huge material creation is resting in him, meaning in Krishna. But the Lord is giving an example which may help us to understand. The sky may be the biggest manifestation we can conceive. And in that sky, the wind or the air is the biggest manifestation in the cosmic world. The movement of the air influences the movements of everything. But although the wind is great, it is still situated within the sky. The wind is not beyond the sky. Similarly, all the wonderful cosmic manifestations are existing by the supreme will of God. And all of them are subordinate to that supreme will. As we generally say, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, everything is moving under his will. By his will, everything is being created, everything is being maintained, and everything is being annihilated. Still, he is aloof from everything, as the sky is always aloof from the activities of the wind. This is an amazing example. Amazing example. This is to help us understand. By the way, an analogy is not proof of anything. This is an analogy. It's not proof of anything, but it is useful in helping us understand something by starting from the known to understand the unknown. Right? It's like a bridge that we walk across to pass a big empty space between two mountains or between two things, right? So you build a bridge. So the bridge is giving an example of something you know to understand something you don't know, right? To give you an idea. But it's not considered proof. It's not considered proof. What is proof? Proof is shastric evidence. That's proof, right? So when Arjuna says to Krishna in the 10th chapter, he says, now Arjuna is a witness that Krishna exists. But, whenever you have a court case, let's say the court case of a murder, if there's a witness, that's it. The suspect is finished because you have a witness. Right? If there's no witness, then you have to use circumstantial evidence to convict the perpetrator. And that's harder to do, but it can work, because you have DNA and you have different things, blood samples and so forth. And then you can also have a timeline, like the man says, oh, well, I was at a party with my girlfriend. And the girlfriend said, yeah, he was there the whole time. We were dancing, right? But then you look at the timeline, and he was actually absent for some time from the dance. And the girl lied. And then you have other people that were at the dance and say, well, we didn't see him between 10 and 12. And then they have the timeline of the murder. It happened between 10 and 12, on the other side of the city, So he had enough time to say he went to the bathroom, but actually ran out the door, got into his car, drove over to the other side of the city, killed someone and drove back again, and then walked out as if he spent 2 hours in the toilet, right? So this is the way they get circumstantial evidence to convict him, because there's no witness. There was no witness when he killed somebody, right? So, but here we have a witness. It's Arjuna. He's talking with the Supreme Personality guy. He's having a long discussion with him, and it's validated by Sanjay, a second witness, right? And it's validated by the fact that there's a whole book written about the discussion that they have with all the details, right? So it says here in the 10th chapter, verse 8 to 12, it says, Param Brahma Param Dhamma Pavitram Paramam Bhavam Purusham Sasvatam Divyam Adidevam Vajam Vibhu Ahustvam Rishaya Sarvir Devasir Naradas Tata Asito Devalovyayam Swayam Chaiva Bhavisime. Now, this is a very important 2 verses in the Bhagavad Gita. It's Arjuna's personal, let's say, experience after seeing Krishna, talking to Krishna for 10 chapters. He became convinced who Krishna is. He says, Arjuna said, you are the Supreme Personality of God. He didn't say, oh, you're one of the demigods and all the demigods and you are equal. No, like the Hindus, they said, they're all gods, right? That is our, superior understanding of the truth. We're all inclusive. They're all God. No, it's not inclusiveness. It's nonsense. There's no such thing as they're all gods and they're all equal, right? Arjuna doesn't say that. He says, Param Brahma. You are the Supreme Personality Godhead, the ultimate abode, the purest, the absolute truth. You are the eternal, transcendental, original person, the unborn, the greatest. All great sages such as Narada, Asita, Devala, and Vyasa confirmed this truth about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. There you have a witness, right? That means it's full proof. It's done. It means it's fact, right? It's not made up. You have an actual witness, and there's not one witness. You have validation of that witness's statement by Vyasa and Narada and Asita and Devala. These are great, superior human beings who have, transcendental vision, and they validate what Arjuna says, right? Okay, now this is the mature realization of Arjuna after hearing 10 and discussing 10 chapters of Bhagavad Gita with Krishna. He comes to this conclusion, right? And it's further validated in the 11th canto, 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna, after seeing the universal form, say the Virat Rupa, right? He says in the 38th verse, Tvam Adideva Purusha Puranas Tvam Asya Visvasya Param Nidanam Vitasi Vedyam Cha Param Chadama Tvaya Tatam Vishwamananta Rupa. You, O Krishna, are the original personality of Godhead, the oldest, the ultimate sanctuary of this manifested cosmic world. You are the knower of everything, and you are all that is knowable. You are the supreme refuge above the material modes. O limitless form, this whole cosmic manifestation is pervaded by you. What a statement. But he can make it because not only he sees Krishna in his original form, the three-bending form of Sham Sundar, who's driving his chariot, right? But he also sees his universal form, the Virat Rupa, which is an expansion of him in the material world, and it includes everything. Everything is basically situated within him and resting on him. He actually sees it. He actually sees the whole universal form, and it's frightening for him to see such a thing. It's unbelievable. No one had ever seen it before Arjuna. He's the first one who actually saw it. And the Devas, while Arjuna is seeing it, is seeing part of it also, right? And he was not the only one seeing it. The Devas are also witnessing it. But Arjuna is seeing the whole thing, and it's bewildering. And he said, okay, I can't take this anymore. Go back, revert back to your Narayana form. But actually, I really want to see you in your two-armed form. Right? Because that's what he was seeing originally. Krishna sitting as the driver of his chariot in his original two-armed form. Right? So, therefore, even Narayana, this proves that even Narayana is not the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's also a Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he's an expansion of Krishna. The two-armed form that looks like a human being, but that's actually Krishna's original form. So therefore, the Shri Vaishnavas have got it wrong also. That's what I said I wasn't going to say yesterday, but I'm saying it now. They also have it wrong. The ones that follow, what's his name, Desika. Vedanta. The ones that follow Vedanta Desika. They don't follow Ramanujacharya. Follow Vedanta Desika, right? So, anyway, that's another point. Okay. So, in the purport to this verse, it's just 11th chapter, 38th verse. Everything is resting on the Supreme Personality Godhead. Therefore, he is the ultimate rest. Nidanam means that everything, even the Brahman effulgence, rests on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He is the knower of everything that is happening in this world, and if knowledge has any end, he is the end of all knowledge. Therefore, he is the known and the knowable. The known and the knowable. He is the object of knowledge because he is all-pervading, because he is the cause in the spiritual world. He is transcendental. He is also the chief personality in the transcendental world. Yeah. There's nowhere where it says that Shiva is the chief personality in the spiritual world. There are statements that say he's the chief personality in the material world, but not in the spiritual world. So again, that's another proof that Krishna is the original supreme personality of Godhead. So the worshippers of Shiva who claim that he is the original personality of God, they're also wrong. They also got it wrong. There's a lot of people that got it wrong. Not only the scientists, not only the materialists, not only the empiricists in the material world, even people that are involved in spiritual life and who have a lot of spiritual knowledge, even they have it wrong. See? We have to carefully read Bhagavad Gita to get it straight. Otherwise, we'll get confused, not only by the materialists, we'll get confused by the spiritualists also, who have, a certain amount or a big amount of spiritual knowledge, but they still have something wrong, right? Okay. So when it says he is the known and the knowable, that's a very significant statement because that's further explained in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where it says, let me get it here. He says, one second. Oh, wait a minute. I think I made a mistake. Let's see. I also make mistakes. Oh, it is the 13th chapter, so let me go back and take a look. All right, we'll come back to this. Okay, yeah, 13th chapter, 18th verse. Jnanam gyayam jnanagamyam hridi sarvasya vitistitam. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. Okay. So when it says jnanam, that means he is knowledge. And when it says gyayam, that means he's the object of knowledge. And jnanagamyam, he is the goal of knowledge. So here he says, in this, what we just read, it says that, we just read that in the 9th chapter. Yeah, one second. Yeah, because he is the 38, 39, right. He is the known and the knowable, all right? So when it says here, jnanam gyayam jnanagamyam, the known is the object of knowledge, that's gyayam, and knowable is to be, he is the goal of knowledge, jnanagamyam. Okay, so you see, there's this connection between everything in the Bhagavad Gita. It takes a long time to understand this. The Prabhupada never deviates from, or he doesn't contradict himself at any point. If everything he's written, everything is connected, right? And he gives more and more information about that connection as we go along reading, the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so we come back now to the original thing, and that is this verse. It says, the gigantic universal form of the Supreme Lord is the first incarnation and the plenary portion of the super soul. He is the self of an unlimited number of living entities, and in him rests the aggregate creation, which thus flourishes. Now, why does it say that he's the first incarnation? In other words, first incarnation in the material world. Incarnation, now let's analyze that word. It's a Latin word. It means having someone from the spiritual world or some principle of spirituality is manifested in a material body. Right? So the Virat Rupa has a material body. It's not a spiritual body. It is actually a temporary expansion of the Lord. But it's still considered non-different than the Lord, just like the deity is considered non-different than the Lord. Okay? But why does it say he's the first expansion? Because we usually think that Lord Brahma is the first living being in the material world. Well, that's true. He's the first living being. But the first expansion of Krishna into the material world is the Virat Rupa. Because everything is contained within the Virat Rupa. The entire Mahat Tattva is contained within the Virat Rupa. Okay. So you can get confused. You say, well, I thought Brahma was the first expansion, right? So that's why you have to carefully read everything and think about it and ask questions yourself. You know, why? How come it says the first expansion? Because it says Brahma is the first living entity in the material world. Yeah, living entity. But the first expansion of Krishna in the material world is the Virat Rupa. And then it says that the Supreme Lord expands himself in two ways: by personal plenary expansions and separated minute expansions. So, this is another thing that's bewildering. People, because the Mayavadis say, Atma becomes Paramatma. This is nonsense again, more and more nonsense all the time. Everywhere you're gonna see this nonsense, things that are not true. You know, but they're presented by so-called authorities as if they're true, right? So, no, Atma does not become Paramatma at any point, right? So here it says that he expands himself in two ways: by personal plenary expansion. Now you have to understand the word plenary. Plenary means it's absolutely the same thing. There's no difference. Whether he's Narayana or Vishnu, there's no difference, you know. They're just minor things that might be a little bit different. Like, for example, Krishna plays the flute. Narayana doesn't play the flute. Krishna dances with the gopis. Narayana doesn't dance with the gopis. That doesn't mean he's not God. He's not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he has all the powers that Krishna has, but he doesn't have all the pastimes. Nor does he have two arms. He's got four arms. So some people say, oh, aha, that proves he's God. He's got four arms rather than two arms. No, it doesn't prove anything. See the way people can think, you know, they well, we're rational. If he has four, it makes her a demigod, yeah, but not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, you know, we don't want to get caught in these false narratives, right? Although it seems logical. It seems logical. If she's got 10 arms, that means she's better than Narayan. He only has 4 arms, right? But no, Narayana has all the powers of Krishna. And Durga does not have all the powers of Krishna. And by the way, she's only manifest in the material world. She's not manifest in the spiritual world. But her origin, Yogamaya, is in the spiritual world. Okay, so then it says, the Supreme Lord expands himself in two ways: by personal plenary expansions and separated minute expansions. Now, what does it mean by separated? Are we separated from Krishna? Well, we only get separated from Krishna in our mind and false ego. But we're never really separated from Krishna. It just looks like we are. Now, is the material nature separated from Krishna? Well, yes and no. The material nature is reabsorbed into the body of Mahavishnu. It's not destroyed, but it goes back into a potential form in terms of energy, and all those energies are reabsorbed along with the living entities back into the body of Mahavishnu. So we're never separated in the sense of you take a piece of paper and you tear it into different pieces and then you throw the pieces away. That is our understanding of separation. But when it talks about the soul, the jiva is being separated from God, the example is given. Prabhupada speaks into a microphone that's connected to a tape recorder. And then what he spoke in, let's say, July 5th, 1975, is recorded on this tape. And then in July 2025, you play the tape and you're hearing Prabhupada's original voice speaking a lecture that he gave in 1975. So that is his separated energy. That's his separated energy. It's him, but he spoke it, 50 years ago, right? He's not here physically right now, but his voice, you're hearing it. So it's his separated energy. So in the same way, we become the separated energy of Krishna by forgetfulness of the Lord. And we get trapped in the material world. Now, are we separated? In other words, no, we're eternally part and parcel of Krishna. That has not changed. But we separate ourselves by these false concepts that we get. Therefore, it's possible to reconnect to Krishna because we're not eternally separated from him, you see. It's just a temporary situation. Of course, it lasts a long, long time for most of us, but we are part and parcel. That part and parcel is never going to end. That's why we can go back to Godhead. Why does it say back to Godhead? But that's where we came from. And we can go back because that's where we came from. If we didn't come from there, there's no question of going back to Godhead, right? Okay, so the same thing with the material energy. Material energy is Krishna's energy, but it's a separated energy. So, but still, it's not independent of Krishna, even though it seems to be separated from him. Okay, since the living entities are very small, they are sometimes described as the marginal energy of the Lord. Now that's another important phrase. Why? One time I was listening to a class by Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and he was there at that time. He's giving the class, and he was explaining why the living entities fall into Maya. He says they're prone to fall into Maya because they're very, very small, and they can be covered by the material energy. Krishna is bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest, so you cannot cover him. But it is possible for us to be covered by the material energy, right? So he said that's why, and then when we're covered, we are considered to be separated expansions, right? The plenary expansions, or the Vishnu Tattvas, are never separated expansions, right? But yet, the jivas are called separated expansions, are living entities. Since the living entities are very small, there it is, since we are very small, they are sometimes described as marginal energy of the Lord. So when you say marginal energy of the Lord, you get the idea it's separated, right? Or it's different than the Lord, right? Yeah, we are individuals, and we are, unfortunately, because of our mind and intelligence getting confused, we seem to be separated from the Lord. But that can be fixed by the process of Krishna consciousness. And we go back to our original position as it, but the fact that we are part and parcel of Krishna, that's never changed. How do we know that? It's because of one word, where it says, in 15th chapter, 7th verse, it says, Mamai-vamsa jiva loka jiva bhuta sanatana, that the jiva is eternal. So that means our position never really changes. We're always part and parcel of Krishna, right? Mamai-vamsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. So the word sanatana finishes the whole question. We're never really separated from Krishna. This separation is a temporary thing, right? It can last billions of years, right? But it's not our real state. Our real state is we're always connected to Krishna. Okay, so you can see how one word can make a big difference, right? And therefore, every word is chosen by Krishna especially. And Prabhupada, when he's translating Krishna, he chooses every word very carefully. Now let's go back to this word incarnation. The real word in Sanskrit is avatara. Avatar does not mean incarnation. Because when the avatars come, they're different than, let's say, the Virat Rupa. Virat Rupa is a material thing. But the avatars, where you say Narasingha or Vamana, Rama, Kurma, they don't have material bodies. They have spiritual bodies, right? So they are not really an incarnation. Incarnation means karn means body. You have a material body. But he could have used the word avatar if he wanted to, but then, people don't understand it. They understand the word incarnation, right? But incarnation in the sense of avatar, someone who is descended from the spiritual world, and thus he does not really have a material body at all, right? Okay. However, Vyasadeva, or Jesus Christ, they could be considered as incarnations. They're jivas. Yeah, but they have received one absolute power of Krishna. So in the case of Vyasadeva, he has the literary ability. He's got that Shakti, that power. So he's considered Shaktavish avatar. It's a jiva. Now there's two types of Shaktavish avatars. You have to understand. Some are direct incarnations of Krishna, and some are jivas who've been empowered by Krishna. Okay, so there's a lot of things to explain, right? But this is a forum in which we can explain a lot of things. Can we explain everything on a Sunday feast lecture? No, it's not possible. We usually stick to just things that can be rather easily understood by the people, right? But all these fine details, these can be discussed in a class like these, where we're going very slowly and going verse by verse and showing connections to other things and so forth. Okay. So it says here, so in the 15th chapter, verse 7, verse number 7, it clearly says Sanatana. So we're eternally part and parcel of Krishna. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop right there. Are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
Today I got clear on the separated energies by the analogy. The voice of Prabhupada is a separated energy.
Yes.
How do I understand similar way for the plenary?
Well.
And marginal. Those are the two words.
Okay. Plenary means absolute. There's no difference. Look the word up now in the dictionary. Plenary, yes.
Yeah, it has absolute.
Huh?
The meaning is absolute.
Okay, one second. What were you going to say, brother? There's one original candle. They all look the same. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that analogy is there. But always remember, analogy is not considered proof,
Proof,
but it
yeah,
helps you to understand something. Yeah. So what did you say?
The meaning is for the meaning for the
Plenary.
plenary is unqualified and absolute.
There you go. So that's why he's using the word plenary expansion as opposed to separated expansions. Okay. But they're still absolute. Yeah. So you have plenary expansions, you have partial plenary expansions, you have partial plenary expansions. Okay, it gets even more confusing or more detailed. And then you have separated expansions. Okay. So
And
no.
marginal.
Huh?
What is the analogy for marginal?
Well, marginal means the living let's read exactly where it says that. Yeah, it says, since the living entities are very small, they are sometimes described as the marginal energy of the Lord. See how Prabhupada chose the words very carefully. Sometimes, because it's not their real position, but sometimes because of their forgetfulness of Krishna, they're described as marginal energy. That means, marginal means, here you have the dry sand in a beach. Here you have the sand in the beach that's in the water. And in between the two, there's a line where the dry sand turns into wet sand. That's called marginal. That fine line between.
Sometimes it's part of the water, sometimes it's
Yeah, sometimes that the water goes over that land, that fine line, and becomes wet on the dry sand. Sometimes in low tide, the water recedes, and it seems as if the dry part is expanded. So it's marginal. It's in the middle. Marginal means right in the middle. Okay, but it says sometimes. They are sometimes described as the marginal energy of the Lord. And then he says, but the mystic yogis consider the living entities and the super soul, Paramatma, as to be one and the same. It is, however, a minor point of controversy. There's controversy about it, right? Because, after all, everything created rests on the gigantic Virat, or universal form of the Lord. So the devotees can understand why the mystic yogis got it wrong, right? Because you could say it is and it isn't again, because everything is a chintya, beta, tattva. Everything in the spiritual world and the material world, everything is a chintya, beta, tattva. It is one, inconceivably one and different. You want to say something?
Maharaj, like Prabhupada, you said there's a minor controversy. It's a small controversy, but it's a major controversy.
It's a major controversy.
But in this bigger scheme of things,
It's a minor controversy.
for a
Yeah.
spiritually elevated person, it's okay.
Yeah. So the mystic yogis who are doing spiritual things, right? They're not materialists. You know, they are elevated spiritual souls, but they got a little thing wrong, right?
But if they're properly guided, then they
Yeah, then they can straighten that out. You know, just like the four Kamaras, they had something wrong in the beginning. They were Mayavadis, right? Not Mayavadis. They were impersonalists. There's a difference between Mayavadi and impersonalists. Yeah, they are bona fide impersonalists, and they're unbona fide impersonalists called Mayavadis, right? That's another confusing thing. It's not confusing when you understand, but it seems to be confusing because some people use the word Mayavadi for everything, right? But no, there are bona fide impersonalists and unbona fide impersonalists. So they thought that everything is impersonal, but they were not Mayavadis. Mayavadis says, Kevala Advaita, there's absolute oneness, nothing else, right? That's a wrong concept, right? So they were not Mayavadis. They said, well, we just don't know, but we're not going to deny that this might be something else. So they would be called a pure agnostic, in a sense. They're open. They're not closed like the Mayavadis. They're closed. That's why they say Kevala Advaita, absolute oneness. There's nothing else, right? No, the four Kumars left the door open. They didn't shut the door. So when they go and actually see the Lord, and they bow down and they smell the fragrance of the tulsi leaves at his feet, they immediately realized that this is the Supreme Personality Godhead, and they became devotees. Right? So that it is possible to understand Krishna going through impersonalism. It's possible, but it's very difficult. Very, very difficult, but it's possible. But it's impossible for the Mayavadis. They will all fall down. Even if they merge into Brahman, they will fall down. Right? Because they have a wrong concept. At least the four Kumars, they didn't have the full knowledge, but they left the door open for it. Sukadeva Goswami also was an impersonalist in the body of his mother. And when he was in the body of his mother, he said, well, I don't have to go anywhere because I understand that everything is one. Whether I'm in the womb of the mother or I'm outside of the mother, all is one. But when he heard Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by his father, he could hear it inside the womb. See, this is a second example of prenatal consciousness. We have two examples that we know of. One is Prahlad Maharaj. He was instructed in the womb of his mother. And Sukadeva Goswami was instructed in the womb of his mother. So he stayed in his mother's womb. You know how many years he was in the womb of his mother? 16 years. 1,000 years?
That's what, like the entire time of Hiranyakashipu performing tapasya, the whole period he was in the womb.
Okay.
I don't know the exact number, I'll find out.
Yeah. So he stayed 16 years. Imagine the poor mother, right? Carrying the baby 16 years, not 16 months or 10 months or 9 months, 16 years. But then he said, aha, now I have a reason to get out of my mother's womb. I'm going to go out and preach Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So he became a personalist by hearing his father speak Srimad Bhagavatam. And his father basically only explained the four nutshells of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But Sukadeva goes out and expands the four nutshells into Srimad Bhagavatam, which has, thousands of verses. All this is mysterious, all this is transcendental, all this is fascinating. We don't realize what people are capable of doing, or what we're capable of doing. We need to open up our horizon and see what is our real potential. Otherwise, we stay in this very, very small time, space module. It's like prison. We're all in a prison. Prison, you're limited, right? But it's a false prison in our brain. See, one time there was a man, and he made a little mistake, and he was put into a dungeon. You know what a dungeon is? Yeah. What is a dungeon?
It's a cell in a dark room.
Yeah, and it's on the bottom floor. It's wet a little bit, and dark, it's cold, and, it's a dungeon. It's not a nice place. So he was put in a dungeon. by a demon. And every day the demon would come down the steps. We have to go down to the dungeon, and he would hear. The demon always made these slow steps, and would hear. And he knew the demon's coming, and he was afraid. The demon was ugly and smelled bad, and he's bringing food for him, right? And he wouldn't speak like normally. He'd go, and it scared the heck out of him, And then the demon would open the door. It was a door that had a squeaky, rusty type of noise. It would open up, and the demon, and then he had to. He was so scared, He'd take the plate or whatever it was real quick, and he'd be shaking like this, and he'd go like that, and then the door would close, So he just scared the heck out of him, But this went on for some time, and finally he said, "I don't care anymore. I'd rather die than experience this anymore." So he decided that the next time the demon came down, he would challenge him and fight with him and die, right? So the demon comes down, and then he heard him, and he was determined. I don't care, I just want to die now, So then the demon opens the door, opens, and the demon's like that, right? And he said, come on, I'm going to fight with you now, come on. And the demon goes, he said, yeah, that's it, get angry, I'm going to fight with you, you can kill me now, I don't care, But then the demon started moving, and he opened the door even more, and the door is completely open, and he's there, and he's coming like that, but he seemed to be, moving like around, and the guys are, okay, come on, fight, I'm going to kill you, and they sort of like switch places, the demon ends up inside the dungeon, and he's on the outside, and then when he realizes he's on the outside, he's looking around and says, come on, why don't you fight with me, come on, and he's looking around, he's outside, so then he says, well, maybe he doesn't want to fight, so he just turns around and starts walking up the steps. But then he's worried because there are more demons outside, right? So he goes up and the other one's still down like that, but he doesn't come after him. And so he opens the door a little bit for the outside, and he looks around. There's plenty of them out there, So he said, I don't care. I'll die, So he goes out, and he's looking at them, and they're all looking at him, He said, okay, come on, you guys, I don't care, You want to kill me, you come and kill me, They're just looking at him, and they're all going, but they're not doing anything. So he just keeps walking slowly, and then he comes to the where there's two guards at the door, and he looks at them, and they look at him, and they're going, He said, okay, come on, fight with me, But they don't do anything. So then he thinks, well, maybe I'll just walk outside then. So he walks outside, and he looks back, and they're all looking at him. But they don't do anything. But then he realizes he's free. He just walks away. So the whole thing was a hoax, right? He suddenly realized it was all in his mind, right? It wasn't actually real, right? That's our position. We're like that guy. We're in this prison, right? And it's very, very, very small dungeon that we're in, right? But it's all false. It's not actually real. It seems real, and it looks real, and we might even touch it, and it feels real, but it's not actually real. It's not who we are, what we are, right? So that's that's a little story example to show that we're not actually in prison. We're only in prison because we've forgotten Krishna. Right? And we can get out by remembering Krishna. Haribol.
Maharaj, there was one online question, quick one. Does Virat Rupa also contain Goloka Vrindavan?
No, of course not.
Okay.
It's only in the material world. It's not in the spiritual world. It's a material form of the Lord, just like the deity. Haribol. All glories to Prabhupada. Also, stories like that are not proof, but they help us to understand it. Go ahead.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru
Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bandho Muyi Savadana Mate Jahara prasade vai ye bhavatoriya jai
Jahara prasade vai ye bhavatoriya jai
Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy te
Krishna prapti hoya hoy
Guru Muga Padma Vakya Chite te Koriya Kya
Guru
Muga Padma Vakya Chite te Koriya Kya Guru Muga Padma Vakya Chite te Koriya Kya Arana Koriyo Mane Asha Arana Koriyo Mane Asha Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati जय प्रसादे पूरे सर्वा आशा चक्षुदान दिलों से जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जागा होते आविद्या विनाशा जाते वेदे गाय जहर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनारा बंधु लोकनाथ लोकेरा जीवाना आगा प्रभु कोरो दोया देखो मोरे पाद छाया ये वे जैसे कुशिक त्रिभुवाना शीला प्रभुपाद पतित पवाना जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय
कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्यति नामिने ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्यति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare
Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jaya Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Jaya Guru Hari Bol. Jayo Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parajika Chasta Tarasatara Shri Shri Shriman, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Brahmins Hoshi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaitik Radhar, Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath, Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to Simple all glories to Simple all glories to Simple all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Bhagavacharya Nirvisesa Sujivadi Paskati Rasatanya. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scripture sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread